And we are back with the Run to Daylight show, and I am joined today by Adam Wilde. Adam is was a partner of mine um, over at Sharp Football, and we are going to do some fun stuff today. So, welcome to the Run to Daylight stream, the first one of the year. I'm your host, Todd Burrows, and I am again joined by Adam Wilde. Adam is a showdown expert, and since I haven't played showdown in a long time, and I never used an optimizer for showdown, when I did, I thought it would be great to bring Adam in and to show him all the cool features of the Bink machine, which is the 1 week season optimizer. And he is going to help me with some of the thoughts that I'm going to need. I want to also shout out to my friends at the FFPC. Today's show isn't about best ball, but any of you know me that most of my shows will be best ball related. The FFPC is where you need to play fantasy football this season. No salary caps, no DFS, no new formats to learn, just the pure drafting fun that you've loved for years. It's a trustworthy site. It's where most of my money goes. The FFPC is home to not one, but two never too early best ball contests. You can draft in the main contest and take your best shot at a $25,000 grand prize. That one is $125 each, and that's the one I will be playing in. Or if you're looking for a contest with a five-figure grand prize and just the $35 entry, the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament is the contest you've been looking for. More than 130 incoming rookies are already in the draft pool. Play now at myffpc.com. Adam, I know that after that great intro, you are going to want to play on the FFPC. I'm so glad that you decided to join me. We meant to do this last night, but life got in the way. I'm hoping that life worked out okay.
Yep. Worked out good. We're good.
All right. So what I'm going to do is ask you one or two questions, for those who don't know you. Why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and your knowledge of showdowns?
Yeah, sure. So I did Dynasty Fantasy Football for probably 8 years, and then I started into DFS, and I just felt like I was just getting steamrolled in standard DFS, as most people know the pain in main slate. A lot of juggernauts out there. So I started playing Showdown for funsies, and felt like I had a little bit of a chance there as opposed to the main slate. So played that for a long time, and now it's my favorite. I mean, I still do some Dynasty stuff here and there, but I am I'd like to be known as the Showdown guy, not so that's what I focus on. I mean, I'm thinking about Showdown basically all season long, every single slate. And
you do a show for Sharp Football about
I
it,
do, yep.
and then you also work for someone else as well, correct? What do you do?
Yeah, football
Who and
guys.
what?
Yeah, so I'll do one. I cover one slate for football guys. We're talking primetime slate. So I'll do one slate for football guys, two slates for sharpfootballanalysis.com. And then I also play the single slates that nobody really knows exist on main. Every single game also has showdown offerings, but people don't often play those. They're usually smaller contests. So I'm also playing those. So I'm getting hundreds of showdown slates a year.
Awesome. Well, you're going to help me, and I'm going to teach you. I know you use an optimizer that you get. I've used an optimizer in the past that I get, but there's certain features about the Bink machine on 1 week season that I really like.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to showing them to you, and so we can hold on. Let me find it. I'm going to share the screen, and then I am going to get our pretty faces out of there so that we can get, let's try it like this. That's too small. That's not too bad, right?
Yeah, it looks good.
Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to show everyone is that you have every place has some different, and I want you to feel free to just steamroll me if there's something you want to jump in on.
Sure.
I will ask you questions as we go along, But as I go along, if you want to see something or anything like that, I'm not going to go through every feature, but just the ones I think Adam is going to need to know. So there is a flex option and a captain option. And in the captain option, you'll see that right now I'm planning on doing mostly Christian McCaffrey in the flex. That's based, Adam, on something you said during our show this week for Sharp Football
Sure.
Analysis. You basically said that you can't see a scenario where he isn't involved heavily. If they're behind, they're going to use them. If it's a tight game, they're going to use them. And if they're ahead, he was used to help get them ahead.
Sure.
So to me, when I look at the ownership on Christian McCaffrey being 70%, and while he is the most owned captain at 19%, and I could see that even being a little higher, if I go 85, 90%, I'm way above the field. It gives me leverage. And my not playing him in the flex where he is 70% owned, other than a little bit, if you go over here into flex, you see I do allow 100%, but because he is going to be 90% of my captain in the few lineups that I don't have him, and I can make rules to make sure that he's not in every other one. Do you understand this so far?
Yeah, I'm tracking so far. I think that I am fairly confident that it's a viable strategy to have 100% of Christian McCaffrey. The conversation just becomes how much in the captain, how much in the flex. So yeah, it seems like you're taking the approach of I want to be as overweight as possible in a big Christian McCaffrey game. I would say that that's going to bode well for 49er stacks. So I'd probably go that route from there. If you're going to do Christian McCaffrey so heavily in the captain, if you're going to go Christian McCaffrey so heavily in the flex, I think you can go the route of the Chiefs.
Well, see, I think that is the way most people are going to be thinking.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it as let's look at it as thirds, right? I want to kind of plan for a third of these to be the Chiefs are ahead, but
to cover everything with
McCaffrey is going to catch 10 passes from behind, fall into the end zone twice. The Chiefs win 38-24, but McCaffrey scores more than any one Chief does.
Yeah, so point out that you're going to do 150 max then, because that's going to be super important. So we're talking 150 max. Then, yeah, you're talking
Correct.
50 lineups that route, 50 lineups close game, 50 lineups 49ers winning.
Correct. And so as we go along, that is kind of my thought process here. I do have some Pacheco in the flex. I'll probably make extra lineups as I go. I'm doing 191 lineups. I'll probably make 200, and that way I can take some of my Pacheco lineups out. So it might only be 93% McCaffrey in the flex, and then I'll mix them so that I'm playing the low stakes. So the $3 20 lineups, the $1 20 lineups, one of the $15, and then the 50-cent 150. That way I get to really play like I'm a professional without putting a ton of money out there.
Right. And I'm playing the, just for the sake of the show, $12.29 max. So I'll try to throw in little tiny tidbits for people in similar contests as we go along too.
All right. So for any of you out there, I am mostly going to be looking at the screen of the Bink machine, but I will be checking in every once in a while in case any of you have comments, questions, anything you want me to show you. All right. So if you go up to the top of the screen, Adam, you see the player's screen. The next thing I want to go over with you is in the flex. You can see all the studs I want to have 100% of available. Now, we're not going to get 100%, but what people need to know about optimizers, if you make it too tight, it won't give you the lineups that you want. So I was having trouble with that. And so I've got 65%, and a lot of these guys are there. Can you see the ownerships that I have? I don't have any McKinnon in yet. I don't have, who is the other guy? Sky Moore in yet.
Mhm.
I will add them if they're active, take out who isn't active.
Right.
But is there anyone who you think I have either too much ownership possible or not enough ownership? And again, from the perspective that we're going to have rules that will make it, able so that we get more of the guys we want and less of the ones we don't.
Right. So two things that I want to mention. The first thing is that you mentioned how if you make it too tight, you won't get enough lineups. One thing that I kind of like to do is make it as tight as I want to make it until I'm not getting enough lineups and then work back. So I think what you've done so far is exactly what I would have done on purpose, which is I keep narrowing and narrowing and narrowing until what we're saying is if you wanted 150 lineups at some point, the optimizer is going to give you 104 because they don't have enough viable lineups to build 150 with the player pool that you've narrowed down. And then you just make it a little bigger and a little bigger till you get 150. Because if you don't put anything at all, the optimizer could give you 1,000 lineups pretty easily. So narrow it
Yeah,
down as
well,
much as you
and
want to and work back out.
unfortunately, with the Bink machine, like some other optimizers I've used,
Uh-huh.
it just won't give you any lineups if it can't give you everything you want.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I like
So
when it gives me partial. Okay.
yeah, I,
Okay.
I I I get that, but that's not what we're dealing with here. And as
And
we go
then,
along, you'll see why I like the Bink machine. But optimizers are like friends, right? Everyone likes different people.
right. That's
There
true.
is no right or wrong. It's just, and when we get to it, I'll show you the main thing. But yes, I agree. I would love for, and if anyone from the Bink machine is going to watch this at any point, I do think it's important. So the next thing is build settings.
Yep.
This is where you can see bracketed ownership, which I don't. I normally what I just do is I use the presets, um, and and then you see the captain parameters, 100% of the running back. So I don't have to change these because I'm going to use 100%.
Yeah,
Um,
it doesn't matter.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Randomness, projected ownership, I normally leave at minimum. Total ownership, I'm allowing the max for a showdown slate. Ceiling projection blend, I always like it turned up to the max. But I always like it, my rules to be strict. To your point,
Yeah.
I want to narrow it as much as I can
Yeah.
with the rules that I want to make it work. So, any questions on any of this? Anything you would kind of do different? Oh, there is one thing
Hmm.
on a slate like this. I know you've talked about it.
Hmm.
I want to leave. I don't want lineups that are going to be more than 49.5.
Hmm.
What do you think is the right number?
So I'll give my take on that because I used to do the same thing. I'd even go down to like 49.2 when I used to do it. But what I found is that the salary wasn't actually really correlated to uniqueness. Like I could still get unique lineups in there that were over what I was killing. So I did pretty well, but I did well less often because I was killing unique lineups that were in the 50K range. Um, so it's really slate dependent. Like, for example, if you had, let's just say Brandon Ayuk for the sake of conversation is the same price as Rashee Rice, but Rashee Rice is like an exponentially better play. Your lineup gets infinitely more unique by just playing Brandon Ayuk instead of Rashee Rice, and both players might have been max salary. So that's why I stopped doing it that way. But you still have to be super strict with like your cumulative ownership to make sure that you're still putting in unique lineups. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is, do you know how they do randomness? Because that's like the main thing that's different site to site is how they
I
handle
don't.
randomness.
I
Okay.
could look it up. They do have tutorials, but I've never really thought about that. So, based on just not knowing, would you leave them at medium?
Yeah, medium's fine. I think that normally the way randomness is handled is it goes from like lineup to lineup basis and makes sure that there's a little bit different in the next lineup than there was in the lineup prior, and then it just builds like a
I think that's how
from
they
there.
do it here too.
Yeah, so it's just making sure that there's a different sort of combination. Like the randomness is probably the number of players that have to be different in every
No,
next
because
lineup?
they've got. I think what it is random. No, what randomness is. So let's say a guy's projected for 10 fantasy points.
Uh-huh. Oh, I
With
see what you're saying.
with medium randomness, he might give you what the first lineup 12 points, the second lineup 8 points, the third
Okay.
9.5. Medium might be within 2 points or a percent. Normally they do it by percentage,
Yeah,
right?
it looked like if you hovered over it, it gave you a tooltip with your mouse. No, over randomness, the word.
No. Well, hold on.
Yeah, it just popped up. We allow randomness by default. We allow moderate variations in given projections and ownership. Okay, so it's projections and ownership. Okay, that's interesting. So it's just a plus minus. Like
Yep,
if they're
like I
projected
was
10,
saying.
it's like
And then
a
the
5,
thing that
10.
you were talking about is over here.
Yes, that's
Minimum
exactly right.
unique players, which I want at 1 for
Yeah.
a showdown.
So that's going to change up at least a player in every lineup, which of course you would have to do anyways. Okay. So yeah, all this looks good. Could you scroll back up for a second, please? Oh, one thing that you can do to help yourself, because you know that to create a unique lineup, if you don't have any players under 18%, you're guaranteed to get duplicated. So sometimes I'll make that at least one. I won't really do 10% because you can still have
You
some
mean this
lineups.
over here?
If you take 18 up to 1 to
No,
6,
they're all at 6.
they're all 0 to 6. So you don't have to have a player under 18. If you take it to 1, that forces.
Gotcha.
So now you're going to have at least one player under 18. You might have the chalkiest lineup ever, but at least you have one player under 18% ownership in every lineup. That's going to be like your MVSs, your Justin Watsons, your guys like that you want to have one of.
Yeah, and rules will also get you there.
Mhm.
You can make rules to get you there.
Yeah.
But this is just an overall way to make sure. I like it. All right, you ready?
Good to go.
All right, let's move on to the next one, team stacks. So on this screen, you get allow defense versus quarterback, allow defense versus flex, allow defense versus kicker. I'm allowing all 3 of those in this
Mhm.
slate. Is there one that you would not allow?
I hate defense versus kicker, but in 150 max, I would keep it too. I just hate it.
I've got
I've-
rules for that. So I'll show you
okay.
the rules. So I made some rules, to kind of help us to speed this up.
Mhm.
So yeah, you'll see I cover that in rules based on our conversations.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
basically, total players 8, total running backs. I'm allowing 2 Chiefs in one, 2 Niners
49ers,
running
yeah.
backs in a lineup. Would you allow 2 Chiefs running backs in a lineup?
If Jerick McKinnon's active, I would definitely allow. Actually, I would make a rule that forces a lot of that. But if he's inactive, I don't know that I want much
I'm
side
gonna
edge risk
allow
there.
it,
Yeah,
and then I can make a rule that we don't want
yeah.
CEH and Pacheco together.
Hmm.
All right. So total wide receivers, total tight ends. We don't want more than one do we want 2 Chiefs tight ends?
Yes, because Noah Gray is going to be in a lot of lineups.
All right, good. Total flex 8, and we've got the salary. I think that is good. Now, you don't have to save it, but I tend to hit refresh every once in a while
Right.
just so that I get, it's just a comfort thing that I don't have to redo. One thing about the Bink machine is a lot of times the captain parameters, no matter what you do, will reset every single time, which can be a little annoying. All right. So now, Adam, we get to the heart and soul
Hmm.
of optimizers, which is the rules, right?
Right.
I'll explain to the people out there who maybe don't use optimizers just how important it is to make rules and not just give me lineups.
Yeah, if you don't make any rules, I mean, you're going to have a large contingent of your lineups that are just dead on arrival because you've just done things that are I guess minus EV, as the cool kids say, that you just didn't know because you didn't make any rules. Like one of those, if you're playing 150 max, I probably will allow this, but let's just assume if you're playing something lower for explaining rules, like playing MVS and Justin Watson in the same lineup is usually not going to work out. So if you're playing smaller field, then you would kick that out so that you're not just dead on arrival because you just don't have the ceiling with those lineups. You can't get there when one player scores 3 points and another scores 2, even if your other 4 hit, because everybody owns those players too. So rules are just like the most important part, which is kind of what you're getting to. It doesn't really matter what you've done on all the other pages if you don't put some at least reasonable rules in place.
Yep, and that's the main reason I have you here. So I made 6 rules. It certainly isn't where I think we're going to end, but they were easy ones that I knew I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go through each rule. I'm going to explain to you how this works and the features of the Bink machine. So the number one thing I like about the Bink machine is that you can make a rule with a percentage. And we'll explain that more as we go along. The other really important thing is anchors, and it's more important when you're stacking. So that, let's say I was Jake Moody was a quarterback, and so I now have hit anchor, and that means every time that if with this rule, it would mean that I would allow Harrison Butker to be stacked with Jake Moody 100% of the time. All right. It means that if Moody's not in the lineup, the rule doesn't apply, is basically the way that it works. Now, what I do like about this is, let's go over to this rule. If I hit, you are allowed to anchor 2 different players.
Okay.
And so by anchoring 2 different players, you're basically saying those 2 players have to be in the lineup. So it gives you a little more flexibility on rules than some other optimizers I've used. Any thoughts on that so far?
Nope. Looks good so far.
All right. So first rule. Most of the people that I've talked to don't want the kickers from opposing team on the same lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a rule 100% of the time. I want these kickers, but I only want a max of 1 of them.
Okay.
If I said a minimum 1 of 2, that would make the rule that I wanted at least 1 of the kickers and that I was open to both of them being in the lineup. So what I want from you is, my question is, do I want this rule for 100% of lineups? Do I want it for 90% of lineups? What's your thought, Adam, on this rule? Do you want a certain percentage of your lineups to have the possibility, when you have a 0 in the first column, you're saying, I want the possibility of this?
I would put so you're playing 150 max and you're actually going to have 191 lineups. Are you going to do all 191 with the same player set, or are you going to do 150 and then build the rest of them? I guess either way, with 191 lineups to fill them all, you're going to want to allow 2 kickers for sure. Another way that you could do this rule is you could include both defenses too. So you can make a rule for the kickers, but then you could also make another rule set
for
kickers and
let's start with this one.
Okay.
What percentage would you say do I want? I want both kickers in, let's say, all right, so now we're going to allow 2, right?
0 to 2, yeah.
Yep. So what percentage, the rule then changes?
Yeah.
Do I want to allow it in 20% of lineups?
Right. So, okay, that's what I was about to ask. Does percentage tell you how many is required to be in it or how many it can have?
It will be required if the minimum is, you can do it either way. So if I wanted the rule to be required, I would make it the rule 2 of 2.
2 of 2 in 20% of the lineups is what that would be right there?
Correct.
Okay, so I wouldn't do that. I would go 0 to 2, but I would cap it at 20%.
And that's my thought as well.
It's not going to get anywhere near 20%, but then you allow the possibility of it, because in games like this, kickers are actually going to be pretty low because you see their salaries both over 5K. That's really high for a kicker. Or is that that's not their captain pricing, right?
No.
Look. Okay. Yeah.
No, if I wanted
both
the
over
captain,
5K.
if I wanted the captain price,
yeah,
they give you 2 different options here.
Gotcha.
And then you see how it says captain.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't want any kicker captain. I don't care how big your field size is but Yeah, both over 5K. Yeah, you're talking about both of them. And honestly, they'll probably fulfill your under 18% too, which will be nice. So they'll count as the required under 18%, assuming that's what their ownership's projected under.
Cool. All right. Now let's move on to rule number 2, and it's very similar. Do we
Yep.
want to do the same thing here?
Yeah, I think the same exact rule would be okay here. I think you already have rules for Patrick Mahomes and 49ers defense and vice versa, right?
No, I don't.
Okay,
So
so
that is that we'll go through the ones I have, and then you'll start telling me the
okay,
ones that I should have.
okay,
That's the key reason I wanted to do this, because
yeah,
I don't know showdown. All
right,
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 next is the KC kicker with the 49ers defense. I know you don't like this,
yeah,
but I'm allowing it in 10% of lineups.
yeah. That's fair. I mean, in 150 max, you can't be too picky with the rules that you put in because what you'll find if you're using a optimizer and you do 150, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the 150 whenever you do um, build, and make sure that the median projection is at least like in the ballpark of 30 points or something. Because what you'll do is if you made your player pool too narrow, you'll click optimize. You'll be like, okay, I have my 150. You'll be ready to upload your CSV and whatever. You don't scroll all the way down and realize that you have lineups that have like 40 projected points because your rules
So
were so tight.
let's do the exercise.
Okay.
Let's build 150,
Yep.
and we'll see where we're at. Thankfully, it made the 150.
Okay.
So
So look at your
then you
top
go to
projected points.
you you'll go, yeah, but we'll go to the exposures,
Yep.
and so you'll see I got 85% McCaffrey
Hmm.
in the captain spot. You'll see the ownerships over here, the projected ownership, the leverage.
Yep.
You'll see how many times guys are with other guys.
Hmm.
Um, so that's that. All right, so we've got that. Now let's go back to lineups. Let's see if it gives you projected points. So you want to
Yep.
go down.
Yep. Just go. Actually, you probably have to sort by projected points. I don't know if you clicked it or not. There you go. That's fine. It brought all your lowest to the top.
Yep.
So you see you're good so far. I mean, we haven't made that many rules, so I didn't expect it to be that different. But so that's 12 points off of your median projection. Like that's nothing because median projection doesn't matter that much in showdown anyways. I'm just talking about being within like 40 points of 100 or something like that.
I
So
think
80,
that might
88's
be.
good.
I think that might have been covered by putting ceiling projection blend up to 100. But
Oh, okay. So you're saying it won't allow for way, way, way lower median projection?
well, I'm just saying that everyone is being. We're using the ceiling projections to make these lineups.
Right, right.
Okay,
But
so let's go back to lineups. We've seen what we've done. Let's go back to groups. I'm going to move this up to 15%.
mhm. Yeah,
I
it's fine.
don't know that we'll get it, but based on what, as you were talking,
Mhm.
I think allowing up to 15% is good. And then we'll do the same thing with the Chiefs and Jake Moody.
I think there was technically a way you could have done that in one rule with the anchor option, but it'll still work this way too.
All right, good. Let's go over to cheapies. Now, this is based on something you said during
Yeah,
our
yeah.
pod. It's basically every cheap guy. You see that I did include Jawan Jennings in it,
Mhm.
even though he's 4K.
Mhm.
Um, so, is there anyone I'm missing?
Not yet. Um,
You know what?
no. So Jerick McKinnon's not in there yet, but we're gonna have to treat him differently anyways because he's gonna project better than all of them at 200. That's gonna be its whole different
All right.
animal to
All right.
tackle.
And let's do that. So you like this rule.
Yeah, they're
Now,
all good so far.
but the max of two in 60% means there are 40% of my lineups I'm letting more than two. Is that too? Should this number be higher than 60?
You're saying so up to 60% of your lineups can have two of them in there?
Yeah, it means that this rule is only governing 60% of lineups.
Okay.
So, in other words, if I
I can
don't want three of them in a lineup, I probably should make this rule 80%.
Yeah, right. I want to also mention something else. What the optimizer will trick you into doing is having like a bunch of Chris Conley or something like that. So you have to be like super careful because the optimizer will be like, "Oh, okay, you didn't want all those guys. Well, I got another $200 player for you,"
Well,
and then you start getting
that's
Charlie
where
Warner
this feature
minimum
comes in.
projection.
I've set the default ownership to 0,
Uh-huh.
and I've only got guys available who I want.
Very good. Okay. Yep, that's
So,
important.
like Chris Conley,
Yeah.
I've got 0. Should I throw him in?
Yeah, he could be 5 if you're doing 191 lineups.
Yep, that's why, and then I can put him into the rule. Is there anyone else that I am missing that I should probably have?
No, I don't think so. I was just looking at like I was trying to see if there was going to be a viable San Francisco tight end backup, but not really. I mean, you
I
have
guess I
Charlie
should
Warner
put
and Braden
10%
Willis.
Sky Moore.
Yeah,
I think I should put. What about Richie James?
you can probably 5%, but it won't get anywhere near that. Yeah,
And
I
I
think.
put in 10% for Tony. So let's go back to that rule, and let's add Conley.
Yeah, we have to remember there's still going to be. It's insane, but we still don't even have a finalized roster for the Chiefs wide receivers.
Conley. I don't
Actually, I'm
think
seeing
Justin
Justin
Ross is going to
Ross.
be in it, but
The site I'm using has Justin Ross projected for targets and not Kadarius Toney right now, so it's just something to monitor. I'm wondering
and
if
then
Kadarius Toney talking so much this week might have hindered him.
all right. So all of them are in here now.
Yeah.
And is 85 should I'm going to go 90. But let's do this. Let's make sure that hasn't caused the optimizer to break. One of the features I wish the Bink machine had that it doesn't would be the ability to copy a rule, because what I'd like to do is make a rule that in that 10%, the max was 3 without having to add every single guy again.
Right.
All right. So that is that's that rule. And the last rule that I made is I want 2 studs along with McCaffrey in every lineup.
Okay.
But not every lineup, but 90% of the lineups, I want everyone who I consider a stud. It's kind of another way that you back up to make sure that you don't have too many studs in a lineup, but that you're not getting a bunch of guys who aren't going to. And this is another rule that I think helps with that median projection that we were getting. 90%, minimum of 2, maximum of 3. I don't, what thoughts on this rule?
2, max 3. You're going to get this anyways, but it's good when you're building 190 lineups to have some redundancy because you just wouldn't have hit your medium projection without at least 2 of these guys. I'm trying to make sure they're all there. Looks like they are. Yeah, so yeah, it's a good rule. Like probably would have happened anyways, but now you made it a rule, so you don't have to worry about it.
All right. One less thing to worry about. So let's look at our ownership, and in the flex, I want to look at Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. So I'm getting about 40% of each in these lineups, which is good.
That's what you wanted.
Yep. Now, but my next question is, do I want a rule where I only want so many lineups with both, with McCaffrey? So the rule would look something like this. McCaffrey as captain, Mahomes as a flex, Purdy as a flex. Actually, no. I don't want that. So, in other words, do I want them together with McCaffrey, and if so, how often?
Okay, so the way I would handle this is you have them in one right now. I would actually be more concerned with how many zero quarterback lineups you have because it looks like the optimizer's already handling your quarterback exposure pretty well, but you'd have to, because one contrarian build here is Christian McCaffrey at captain with no other quarterbacks, and then you get sloppy lineups, which are really good for like 150 max. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people have at least one quarterback in all their lineups. So I'd actually be more worried in trying to figure out what your max exposure to zero of these two would be.
Max exposure
Or min exposure, actually. What your min exposure to zero quarterbacks would be.
Well, then the rule would be, what percentage do I want neither of them in?
Yeah,
20?
Yeah, let's say 20.
All right, so 20%, I want one of two. So this rule allows in 80% of lineups a max of two, a min of one. That means in the other 20 lineups, I don't think you're going to get them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Or I could do it like this: 20%, 0-0.
Yeah, you could do that too. Same thing.
All right,
I
let's
think
see
it's the same
if
thing.
that breaks the optimizer.
And like before, you might have already had 20% without two quarterbacks, but this makes sure.
Yeah, but what I want to do is I want to see how that affected. See how it dropped their ownership by them not being allowed.
But not a ton. I mean, you're doing all Christian McCaffrey captain lineup, so you're only 12%. You're only negative 12% on.
Right, but I'm going to go back. Sorry. What did I have that? What did I have this at?
10?
20.
20?
I had that at 20. All right, so let's call this group. All right, so let's go down to 15.
All right.
And build again. Exposure, quarterback. Now, it put that was interesting. So the way that I could handle this is by making sure that Mahomes is in 35% of lineups. 32. All right. Actually, I think I like the rule better when it was 20. What do you think?
Yeah, if I'm going to have 100% McCaffrey captain, I'd rather be underweight on at least one of the quarterbacks. And if you have to pick one, I'd rather it be Mahomes because obviously Purdy could stack with McCaffrey for a receiving touchdown.
I'm going to go right in the middle at 17. And people get to see by doing this how important it is to tweak as you go.
Yeah, definitely check if you broke it regularly.
So this is 17 kind of got me where I want. I think 15 with Mahomes less was actually better, right?
Yeah. Your leverage was 12.9 or something, and then just now it was 11.7. So negative, that is. Which is good. I mean,
you're back down to 15. I think that's the right way to make that rule. Yeah. All right. So
to recap that, it's a little less leverage, or your negative leverage on Mahomes, your even leverage on Purdy with mostly Christian McCaffrey captain lineups.
That's nice. All All right. So the next thing is, do we want a rule with the max amount of Debo, Kittle, and Samuel with? So right now, what we're getting, let's look at what we're getting.
Does it show you how many 4-2s, 5-1s, 3-3s you have right now? Just
I
your
don't think it does.
exposure.
Well, I'm sure there's a way, but hold on. So right now we're seeing 38% Debo, 26% Ayuk, and 22% Kittle. How's that range sound?
That's pretty fine. Once you start limiting those guys, it's going to be directly correlated with how many Chief stacks you have, because the 49ers, like multiple of them don't tend to have great games at the same time. So the more you limit your 49ers players, which I think you should do, the more Chiefs builds you're going to get. So you're going to have a lot of Christian McCaffrey captain with Chiefs heavy lineups.
All right. So it does not, it look like, go into, but with McCaffrey as captain, that's something that if I did a lot of showdowns, I'd want an optimizer that told me.
Yeah, I want to know, because I guarantee you, as you start limiting, like if you knock Ayuk's exposure down, your number for 2-4s, I think it would be with the Chiefs. I always suck at that. The 2-4s would increase substantially, because the more you knock down the studs for the 49ers, because you don't have that much money, and the 49ers players aren't cheap. You're already stacking the most expensive captain. So yeah, maybe your Kittle exposure should go up a little.
Well, there's an easy way to do that. You can do it either in the players or in the exposures. So let's say we want a minimum of 30?
Yeah. Basically, this is me inserting my Chiefs bias, because the more Kittle you get, the more money you have for Chiefs players. So you're going to get more Chiefs builds here.
All right. Because it won't necessarily give you what you want, but let's see what it does give me. Right, it's hanging right around there. So it'll be right around there, 34%. All right. Sure. And let's see how it affected 36 Debo. So it really didn't affect Debo and Ayuk.
No. And when we get to building another rule, I want to build an Ayuk and Rashee Rice rule too. So it's good that you have a good bit of exposure of Ayuk to work with.
All right. What's the next rule that we should be looking at?
I think it'd be a good approach so there's two things I think will be a nice approach with your Christian McCaffrey builds is identifying how much Pacheco you want, and also how many times you can include Rashee Rice and Brandon Ayuk in the same lineup. So it's whatever one you want to do first. So
let's go over to exposure, because I do want a lot of Pacheco. Right now, 52%. That's right where I would want.
Probably fair. Yeah. I mean, you're plus 15.
Yeah. And
maybe a little higher, but then you're going to push all your lineups in like a sloppy direction.
Yeah, but again, his exposure will be only 15, but the exposure with Christian McCaffrey is going to be astronomically more.
Right, and I think Pacheco might come in a little under that too, closer to 30. So I think you're good at 52.
I mean, we are getting 25% CEH. That's a little high for me.
Yeah. That'll change if McKinnon's active.
I do want to make a rule before we get into any of your rules. I want to remember. So Elijah Mitchell, McCaffrey is captain. I only want Elijah. So if Elijah Mitchell is playing, I want 100% of McCaffrey. I don't want him in Pacheco lineups.
Okay. Now, do you have any lineups without Christian McCaffrey? No, right? He's in every single one, right?
No. Yes. But, again, I'm leaving Pacheco. You know what? Let's do this. let's see if it works. Let's see if it works with just Christian McCaffrey. Now, see, it breaks for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why.
Oh, because you're locking.
This is something I found with this optimizer, even with like regular season. If you lock someone, it just doesn't seem to work. So I'm going to go 90.
What I'm trying to get at is you should have a rule that does allow Elijah Mitchell with CMC, but since your entire day is contingent on Christian McCaffrey, you should also have a rule where any lineup that doesn't have Christian McCaffrey does have Elijah Mitchell, because you're basically saying with your build type that the only way Christian McCaffrey fails is through injury. So then you need to cover that.
Okay. So then this rule that I made is incorrect. And so
yeah, how do you
yep, give me a sec. I know how to do this. Oh, yeah, it's pretty easy. Any lineup with Pacheco as captain,
there you go,
is going to have 100% of Mitchell.
There you go. Because Pacheco's your only other captain option, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect. Because the only other way. Wait a second. Do you have any Christian McCaffrey flex anywhere?
Yes.
Well, then that means that you're going to definitely have Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey in every Pacheco lineup. You need like an if-then statement.
No. So then what I would do is I'd just say Pacheco, captain, McCaffrey,
there you go.
Flex.
Yep. And then, there you go.
1 of 1. So I get Pacheco.
Because he's
anchored. I don't get McCaffrey.
Right. Got it. Okay, good. So now any lineup that doesn't have Christian McCaffrey is assuming that Christian McCaffrey got injured. That's good.
All right, good. All right, so we did that. I like to name these.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
Rashee Rice and Brandon Ayuk, just getting a be over the field on the exposure to those two, because
together.
Yes, and the reason for that is because, and it might break it, so we'll run it in a second. But a lot of the builds from optimizers are going to have either or of these, because it's either going to be a Chiefs heavy stack or a 49ers heavy stack. So putting them together is going to be naturally unique.
If Ayuk is in the lineup, what percentage of those lineups should have Rashee Rice?
Maybe like 10, maybe. Not a lot, but enough to have some of it.
And then you would need to do the same thing
for Rice.
Which one did I anchor last time?
I think Rice.
Ayuk.
Oh, okay.
So I got to do it with him. All right. So we've got that.
And those are probably going to fill some of your zero quarterback lineups, which is fine. They were probably already there in your zero quarterback lineups, but we're just making sure now.
And it didn't break the optimizer.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay.
All right. So do we need any other kicker or defense rules?
Just make sure that there's allowed to be 3. I wouldn't allow 4, because sometimes the optimizer gets crazy and has both defense, both kickers. That's insane.
I think that's covered here. Only 15. Oh, you know what? Let's just not take a chance. 100% 0 to 3.
Yep.
All right. Anything else? Anything with, what are we getting of Kelsey right now?
Underweight because he's just too expensive for CMC builds. Yeah,
20.
minus 17.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's fine.
But that's not bad.
Yep.
What about Kelsey and Gray together? Do we want them together on a
that's
certain
fine. That's fine. Just treat Gray as a ancillary wide receiver because, I mean, he helps you when he gets 3 catches for 60 yards or something.
So if I've got Kelsey, what percentage of my Kelsey do I want Gray in?
So you've got 20% Kelsey, maybe 5% Gray.
So
honestly,
that means 25% because 5 is 25% of 20. So this means that
does it scale?
That 25% of my Kelsey lineups will have Gray, and 25% of 20 is 5.
Yep. And honestly, you probably just cut it down. He was probably in more than that in your optimizer before that.
All right. Let's see. Let's look at players and see. I mean, we're not getting too much of the minimum guy. Oh, okay. There was one other question I had.
Sure.
So I want to move over. I'm going to go look up Establish the Run.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look at the latest ownerships. And so at wide receiver, we've got MVS at 14, Watson at 13. And do we want a rule? Do we want more of, I mean, that looks like their ownership's about the same. I know you had thoughts about like being double on one and half on the other.
Yeah.
Anything about that you want, because right now we're getting Right now, we're getting 42% Watson, 35% MVS, only 8% Tony. I think there's got to be a rule about Watson and MVS. Like, hold on. I mean, I don't want them both together that often.
No, definitely not. It's your 0 to 3. You have it in cheapies.
Yes, but it doesn't say which cheapies. So I would need a rule that says.
Yeah, because they're the main cheapies. So, yeah.
So basically, only 20% of lineups, I want them both.
Okay. That's reasonable.
What do you think? Do you think that number should be lower?
Probably 15. 15
Let's go 12 and let's see.
That's a lot of lineups. I mean, 15 is 45 lineups it could be in.
That's why I'm thinking lower. All right, so let's go back to that rule. Seven. Do we want to throw Jennings in there too?
I don't think you're going to get that much Jennings to have to worry about it. We can look at his exposure now. What is it up to?
7%.
Yeah, just leave it. You're not going to get a ton of them. He just projects for too much less than all of the cheap Chiefs receivers.
And it didn't really mess with my overall ownership of these guys.
Yeah, it just kind of fixed it.
It just made it so they're not together.
Yeah, no, that's good.
All right, so I thought
that was 7%.
What's that?
You made that. That was 7% that you just made that.
I think so. Do you think I should do it even less?
No, 7's good. 7's good because the optimizer wants that. They want those two together as much as possible. So already making it 7% is is good. I guess it was the other show that I said this, but the equivalent would be like when you're doing your Dolphins builds and you're getting a ton of River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios. Like anyone who's ever built for the Dolphins knows exactly what I'm talking about. And you have to manually make sure those two don't go in there because the Dolphins only have expensive players that do anything. So it's the same concept here. There's so many expensive players that the optimizer's like, all right, let me cram 4 of those guys in here and give you 2 cheap guys, and it just doesn't work.
All right, so we're getting a lot of Rashi Rice. Is 55% too much?
No, that's fine. You want to be overweight on some people. That's only 16% leverage. That's fine.
And 53% on Pacheco is going to be way over on CMC builds.
Mm-hmm. Which
Debo
I like.
38, Purdy 38, 35. Do we want to limit Purdy? No, we don't want to limit Purdy. If anything, we want to limit Mahomes.
I'd rather be lower on Mahomes and higher on Purdy.
All right, so I'm just going to take that 32 out of what I want on Mahomes. And let's see what that does to Mr. Mahomes.
Oh, so it is kind of doing what we needed to do up there. If you look at underweight and overweight, you see it's tells you that it's the top 3 Chiefs guys you're underweight on. And then on the left side, that's not exactly the same. It's not showing you what build types you're doing, but it still gives you an idea of the type of lineups that you're getting.
Okay. And then Stacks breakdown would do that, but you'd have to go through and count it.
Yeah, but that's cool. So the top one, so your top stack is what? Christian McCaffrey, Kittle. Wait, no, that's obviously wrong. That has both Christian McCaffreys in it. Debo Samuel.
Yeah, that's
what's your leverage on Debo Samuel? We didn't really talk about him. He's just kind of meh. Oh, nice. Yep. You're overweight.
Yep.
I would actually probably, it's not going to feel great, but you should probably limit that because it's really hard for Debo and McCaffrey to have big games together.
20?
Yeah, 20 is probably good. I mean, it's really hard. They really don't have.
No, they are negatively correlated, I would say. It
sucks because Debo's a pretty good play in his own right. He just doesn't really make sense with 100% of Christian McCaffrey.
No, I agree. Is 19 good?
Yeah, 19's good. You're -8. That's fine. You still have a good bit of them to cover, whatever. He can do something crazy, take a long rush to the house or something.
$24.11 on Rice, 10 on Purdy, 31 on Watson, 26 on MVS.
That's kind of what I thought would happen. The optimizer would have to give you someone of the Chiefs receivers to make this work.
Yep. All right. Now let's talk about Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
What rules would you have for McKinnon? You said you would want McKinnon rules.
I do want, yeah. So 200 of McKinnon, I would make sure that McKinnon is allowed with Pacheco. Just spitballing ownership because we don't have any on him yet. At 200, he's probably going to get somewhere between 20 and 30%. Maybe we'll say 15 and 25% ownership on McKinnon. CEH's ownership is going to go way down. I don't know if I would want to be overweight or underweight though.
I would say that 15% of my Pacheco lineups would have McKinnon as well.
That's a good idea. And 15% of your total lineups were Pacheco, right? So
no, 50% of my total lineups were Pacheco.
At captain? No, I'm talking about at captain.
Oh, no, this is with him as a flex.
Oh, I got you.
I'm not really concerned about Pacheco as captain because I don't even know if I'm going to use those lineups.
Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, so yeah, that looks good. Then you don't really have to worry about ownership. You just literally anchored him to another player's rules set.
Yep.
I don't
And
think I would change anything.
is there a max ownership that we want on? That shouldn't break anything, but it could. Let's see.
It depends. This optimizer might not have projected points for McKinnon yet, so you might get some crappy lineups.
Let's look. Yeah, it doesn't give me any. So it doesn't break it when this happens. Oh, that's why. What's the max ownership I want on McKinnon?
15%, I guess, probably.
I'm gonna go 18.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put in a user projection of 11 points. Let's see if that does it. Less than 1%. So
Yeah,
easy way to do it. Easy way to do it then.
You just force a minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now what did you make the minimum?
14.
Okay. So it held it right around 14.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, good.
And the more mins that you put in, the harder it is to get what you want.
Yep.
And the more you're kind of defeating the purpose of an optimizer.
Yeah, you're doing it yourself. You might as well just be hand building.
Yeah. I think it's fine when if you're building in a regular thing and you want a lot of certain people. But yeah, no, that's my experience. So let's go back to the rules and just let's go look at all right. So I do think let's look at the cheapies. I know we're not getting a lot of them already, but let's make sure that Ronnie Bell, McLeod should be in here.
McLeod is their kick returner too. You might be able to make sure that he's in the same lineup with the 49ers sometimes.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you about that. So McLeod's in there. But I do now want to rule. McLeod, Jennings, and Bell.
Yeah, probably a max one.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, 100% max one. There's no real scenarios where both of them make it.
Yeah, I mean, and if that's what beats me with McCaffrey,
there's no shot.
I'm okay with it.
You're really begging for as many people to allow that to happen as possible.
And then we might as well do the same thing with Tony, Sky Moore, Hardman, Richie James. All right, let's see if that breaks it. So you can see if you're watching along how important it is to just kind of eliminate these bad lineups. Now, what a lot of the top guys will do is they will literally go through each one of these lineups and they will. And you can see 80 is my lowest, and but my lowest McCaffrey is 88. That's not bad, right?
Yeah, no, not bad at all.
But what a lot of the really good guys will do is they'll look at each of these 150 lineups and see if there's any guys together that they don't want, anything in any of the lineups they don't like, and then they will make a rule to ensure that that doesn't happen again. So we got those.
Did you manually add your 6 to 8 points for the kickers?
I did not.
You will have no kickers then. I just read that note.
Well, let's look. Defense 26 and 16, kickers none.
Yeah, that's the 0 to 6 rule. They have that little note right there.
Yep. So add 6 to the kickers. Oh, projected points 0.
Yeah, they need you to manually add it. I'd probably do a little higher because your kickers are 5,000. So from a point per dollar perspective, they're going to be terrible. So you should probably use the high end and use 8 for both of them.
All right.
And now we shall see. Now you'll have like 15 to 20, hopefully.
What they should say in that note is, please make sure to give a projection to your kickers.
Right.
Still nothing.
Huh. You could put a min on both, but that might make it weird.
Nothing. All right, so let's go to the rules. Let's look at the kickers. 20% 0 to 2. That's what's fucking it up.
Yep.
I should remember to switch over to exposures and kickers so you can see it while it's going. Still nothing.
Yeah, we're broken somewhere. Go to the kicker defense rule. You have... I thought we did a rule with all 4 of them. That was a 0 to 3 rule. That might be breaking it. Is it today? There it is. No, 100% can have 0 to 3.
I just took the rule off for now.
Yeah.
That's not it. Nope. All right. So I think what we need to do is make a new rule. And if this breaks it, then we'll see that something is wrong.
Sure.
All right. So
Was there like a save button when you made the projections?
So let's go to what percentage of lineups do I want at least one? 30%?
Yeah, shit. That's no, that'll be too many. Do like 15. 18. 18's better.
No, because there's two kickers. Let's try it at 25
Okay.
and see what happens. And what you do get is you get to see how slowly this fills. The more slowly it fills, the better your rules are. And there we go, 14 and 4. That's still not enough. So I want at least 15% Moody.
Yeah.
And at least 10% Butker.
Yeah, now you might be golden.
Let's see how it affected defense. So I definitely want two more rules. I want McLeod with the Niners. %, 2 of 2. Who's the other return guy? Did I lose you?
Yeah, we don't know yet. That's what I was going to ask you the same thing. So it could be Tony if he's active. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers that could potentially be active for the Chiefs. The only options really, the tricky part is Sky Moore could return punts and someone else could return kicks. Richie James, I think, does it too. I'll try to look and see if they have announced it yet, but I guarantee they haven't because they haven't even announced the receivers.
I definitely want at least 15% McCaffrey with the 49ers defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had that rule. So now we're down to still good with the kickers. And we got up to 25% with the Niners D. Is that too much?
No, that's fine.
I'm still going to just take that rule down just a hair.
Yeah, I've got nothing on who's returning kicks for the Chiefs, but whoever it is,
you want to
paired a little, just a couple lineups with the defense for the stack option of scoring a defensive touchdown and a touchdown for that ancillary piece. Because a lot of people might have Sky Moore in their lineups, but they probably won't have him with the Chiefs defense. So Sky Moore's the optimal cheapie.
Well, we can make that rule now. So what we do is quick add Sky Moore Chiefs, and then what you want to do is any lineup that has Sky Moore, 50% of the Sky Moore lineups have the Chiefs D.
That works.
All right. So let's go back to. All right. So.
And it looks like it would probably be Richie James for punt return and kick return.
So basically, then what I want to do is this is where having two, the ability to have two anchors. So Richie James, we add to the rule and we anchor him as well. So now any lineup with Sky Moore or Richie James has 50% Chiefs.
Yeah, their official release was Richie James starting punt returner, Richie James starting kick returner, backup Mecole for both, and then Kadarius Toney is third in line for returning punts.
All right.
Which means he's also probably playing.
Let's do a last look at everything. So captain, I'm getting 94% McCaffrey, 6% Pacheco.
Yep.
A quarterback, 42 and 42.
Yep.
I think that's a little high on Mahomes, don't you?
Yeah.
Let's just see where we're losing, guys.
Yeah.
We lost a little on Pacheco. We got probably too much CEH.
I would actually probably leave Mahomes, because then you're going to mess up your Richie James and Brandon Ayuk. That's okay.
38% Watson, 30% MVS, 32% Ayuk. Debo's down at 19.
Good.
Kittle 32.
That's fine.
Defense, some leverage
higher on 49ers. Yep,
which is the way it should be. And kicker.
Yep.
I think this is. I think we got it where we want it.
I think so too.
All right. Let me stop sharing. I want to thank Adam for joining me and helping me to get better at this. Adam, I know you're going to go now and do your own builds. One more time, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yep. You can find me on Twitter at APWILDE. Off season, I'll be doing some dynasty stuff, some best ball stuff, maybe some draft stuff. Hopefully this year. I did pretty well last year. And then, you'll see my work over at footballguys.com and also at sharpfootballanalysis.com.
Give me a big smile for the screen. Look at the camera. I got a picture for my thumbnail. And all right, guys, I also want to thank the FFPC. They're a great place to play. Go to myffpc.com, sign up, get in on those Superflex $35 drafts. I won't be in those rooms because I don't understand the concept of Superflex, and I don't like to split my focus. But I wish that they had it reversed and the Superflex was 125 and the regular was 35, because then I would probably max out that tournament. Adam, again, thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to working with you in the future, and that's going to do it for this show.